podcasts. It's a third session around enablement. So the first one, we've been talking about enablement, alignment to the buyer journey. The second session, we spoke about strategy and bringing clarity into this. Today, we're going to talk about creating automation within enablement. So before we start with this, why don't you introduce yourself to who is Luc and why does he have the authority to talk about these topics?
Well, Cedric, thanks for having me on this call today. I believe in the value commercial teams and their individual contributors can bring for their customers as for their organization. And that is why I help them in creating incremental improvements in their different activities over the different aspects, also with IT or tools. I'm Director of Global Sales Excellence at Materialize Software, where I'm getting to, into touch daily on these subjects.
All right. And you're Global Director of Sales, or at least you lead a few accounts still?
Well, I'm not Global Director of Sales. I'm Director of Sales Excellence, supporting our organization. But we, as even in that function, I do follow up on one big customer. Because I believe that from a sales enablement or an excellence, if you start detaching from the operational world, you risk to get into a very theoretically situation where you detach from reality, and that is why everybody in sales excellence or enablement should still also be in touch with customers, so to stay in the reality.
Yeah. Sounds great. And when you started to introduce yourself, you spoke about incremental gains. In the previous sessions, we covered this as well. I think this is important when you talk about incremental gains. It is a process. It's a continuous way of doing things. And in that sense, automation will play a role. But for me, this is kind of new to hear that we can automate a lot within enablement. So how do you start with this?
Well, first of all, we live in exciting times. There is so much available on automation. You can't imagine how often I get contacted by companies. Hey, could we have an interesting conversation on this or that? Yeah, we have a wealth on tools which are available today to help our salespeople or commercial teams to have valuable conversations, valuable interactions with our customers or with our prospects. Now, there is one thing I would say where I want to warn, and that is I have a strong belief that you need first to have a process before starting to automate. If you start from an interest, hey, there is a tool, there is something fancy in the market which my organization could use, but you haven't established a process or a cadence that works, well, you risk to automate crap. And by if you automate something wrong, you set for a disaster.
Yeah.
And that is why I do believe is that first look into, hey, what works, have a process behind it, have a habit. And once you have established that habit, then start looking, hey, what automation could help me to make that habit or to make that process more efficient.
Yeah. And are you talking about some fundamental as buying the right type of CRM, or are you talking about coaching, or is everything included in this?
Well, everything is included with this, and today I would say that the majority of the commercial organization have some CRM in place, and now there it's important that the CRM reflects the reality for let's say for the commercial organization. That is, it's not a reporting tool only. But that the CRM supports the different activities which are expected for the salespeople to and the marketing people to perform, so that it is a kind of guidance for them to do their job in a good way.
Yeah, I remember a long time ago. I'm thinking if it was already the current century or the previous one, where we had a very very clunky CRM, and we had to adapt our behavior to how to work with the tool. How do you look at this in this is now from now on the way we do things versus okay, we find something that is around the process that we have, and we want a tool that really fits into this.
Mhm. Well, Cedric, don't feel bad. I was also in the past. I also have faced the same situation, and then the leadership was complaining that we didn't use the tool. Yeah, well,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
never supported our activities.
exactly.
Uh, my advice is there to make sure that looking into your different go-to-market models you have within your organization, and the bigger your organization is, the more difficult it will be. And then once you have clarity on the different go-to-market models, look if it's possible to bring some abstraction,
Mm-hmm.
because if you detail the steps of your customer buying journey in too much stages, you risk to first to create a rigid system which for a new product or a new market you want to enter, it will not fit anymore.
Yeah.
There, make sure that so you define the customer buying stages in a certain abstract level, and allow then to work with ideal buying paths beneath these stages to cover the different go-to-market
Okay.
strategies.
Yeah. So when you talk about processes, you talk about let me call it umbrella or steps rather
Mhm.
than go from A to B, do this, then that.
Yeah, and
Okay.
indeed, yeah, indeed.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And so if one example, you see a lot of tools for outreach. For initial conversation, and probably the same as in your situation, I get daily tons of mails
Mm-hmm.
which are not relevant for me, and I say, hey, well, again, an automation tool which was wrongly set up. Mm.
Yeah.
And in Again, nothing against, and these, I can't blame these tools. I can only blame the people who configured the tool or who choose the tool while not having set up their process. So make sure that when you multiply the number of mails you send with these tools, that you have nailed down your message.
Mm-hmm.
You have nailed down the message which is relevant for your audience. You have nailed down the target group which might get the attention for that message. And then you need to look into the balance.
Mm-hmm.
If I use the tool, does it help me to be more efficient? Because you need to check regularly also if it works. And if you spend more time to check if the tool works, then maybe you don't need the tool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
look into, hey, if I use the tool, can it bring my salespeople, can it bring my employees more efficient than the way they do it today?
Yeah. 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 So when you set up a tool, or maybe okay, it's when you set up a tool, and first of all, do people use it like it's intended to use? And secondly, when you start, there is an expected outcome. Um, how do you start? Where you set the benchmarks?
Well,
What do you do with expectations?
Well, there I follow a best practice in change management,
Okay.
and sales excellence or sales enablement is also about change management.
Mm-hmm.
First, have a clear view or have a clear description of, yeah, what do you want to solve.
Mm-hmm.
And how does your new concept looks to solve that particular issue or that particular challenge. Once you have done that, choose a pilot. Choose a pilot, because if you don't work, if you go broad in the organization, and the concept was not working, or the concept, so the assumptions you made in your concept, what were not the right ones, you will or you will wait very long till you have something which is good enough to start. When working with a pilot, you can start much faster and adapt accordingly in a small group. And that the advantage of working with a pilot is, first, you will create a couple of champions in the organization, fans also of what
Yeah.
you're doing. And once that is nailed down, then do the rollout till it becomes a habit. But if you risk to take the risk to do a rollout without a pilot, very often there will be resistance, first to the change, and secondly, yeah, you risk to plan for a disaster,
Yeah.
which nobody wants it.
And disaster to plan.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I used to work in tech companies, and what I sometimes saw there is that we have all these enthusiastic people. They read up about the tool, they use a tool, and they want to roll it out. With the result that you have all these different processes in sales, at the same time, all these different tools. So being overwhelmed by initiatives, by having to test maybe 5 or 10 tools. So that's the other extreme of the picture. Have you ever met some tool overwhelm, and how do you make sure that there is that balance between rolling out efficiencies, rolling out automation, versus not going too fast with too many tools at the same time?
Well, and I think that is again where sales excellence or sales enablement plays an important role in the governance of what is our organization in need of what tool.
Mm-hmm.
Then this link to the incremental improvements. If you look into your set of activities along the customer buying journey, if you see that, hey, where are the improvements we need to perform upon, then it helps to see what technology is needed, in what type of conversation you need that improvement.
Mm-hmm.
um, and that really then look into, hey, now we focus this quarter on this improvement, we focus this quarter on that improvement, and will that prevent you of having an overkill in your tech stack? Maybe not, but it
Mm-hmm.
certainly helps to be very critical on on what choices you make for tools. And when you look into the market today, a lot of tools have some overlap.
Yeah.
So it is as it was meant to be, that they
Yeah.
try to overlap here and there. Sometimes you need to say, yeah, we don't choose your tool because it has too much overlap already with what we have in our current tech stack.
Yeah, yeah. At the same time, so we just spoke about overlap and overwhelm. Um, how, I mean, I see now other voices where people say, okay, I want to reduce the amount of tools that I have, which is for me not the smartest thing to do, because you don't have to limit, because you don't want to have more than 5 or 6 tools, for example. You need to adjust, as you said, where you need to have improvements. So how do you how do you talk about this, and maybe within materialize in, okay, this is the tool set that we need. If this is 1 tool or 20 tools, this is what we need. And again, how can you make it a strategic conversation?
Mm. Well, we are lucky, or it's maybe big because by our habit, we don't have that overkill of tool stack. In the contrary, but that is really because we look into first processes, define what type of process we want to improve, and then only look into the tool stack.
Hmm.
And really look into, hey, does our process work? So how often do we go through that type of process? Does it really make sense to automate?
Yeah,
And I do believe that by setting first process and then automation, that you can avoid to get into an overkill of in your tech stack. Typically, what I hear from other companies is, because they first choose the tool and then look into their processes, that they had an overkill. Yeah.
yeah,
And for those organizations, I would strongly encourage, hey, uh, do freeze and look into your processes first. Look into what works, and only when you have clarity on that, then choose what to keep, or what to get rid of.
Yeah. And if you look at besides automation and tools, I think sometimes it can be as simple as creating a good handover template, which
Yep.
can be done with something simple, right?
Indeed, very often it comes down to helping to structure the way of working, or structure, or helping to structure the thoughts of your salespeople in having that in having the conversations with the customers by some simple frameworks.
We could talk about sales excellence. I feel that we're also touching a lot of topics where it would be either sales effectiveness, sales strategy, operations, IT, if it goes about selecting tools. How do you create a governance structure, and how do you make sure that the right people are sitting around the table to make these decisions?
Mhm. Well, I think the way to do it is having somebody in charge of sales excellence or sales enablement within your sales leadership, working very closely with the global sales director.
Mhm.
And by understanding his or her strategy, his or her choices to make on and what challenges to overcome, sales excellence or sales enablement can be a good partner there to advise on what needs to be done, what projects to run, what systems to implement, or what tools to introduce. And this with somebody who has a long track, let's say a long track already in sales, who
Yeah.
has done sales, who has done sales management. Because if you haven't performed these jobs yourself, it's very hard to understand the needs of the needs of a sales manager. Make sure that you have that experience, and have done that job yourself, so that you can advise from practice, and not the theoretically one.
Yeah, and I think over that we have done, it has become clear that enablement and excellence is more than just being a sales trainer. And I think it's
For sure.
important for the audience that everybody realizes this. And you do need a seat around the table to make strategic decisions, especially with regarding performance, sales performance, and efficiency. So maybe you can talk about your journey, how you have seen enablement changing, because it is important in the scope of making decisions in automation versus process. I mean, for people, it could sound like, okay, what will a sales trainer talk about this? But I think your journey in this is very important as well.
Well, yeah, and even when I was so performing sales myself as a full-time job, I had the mindset of continuous improvement.
Hmm.
I was lucky of having a number of sales leaders who allowed me to do that, but I was evaluating my conversations with customers, how I prepared, how I follow up, and that with that mindset, I got into a situation where I was very eager to learn. I learned by talking to other salespeople, talking to other sales leaders on from other organizations, on how they went over the different aspects of sales. And I continue to do that also when I was sales manager or sales director myself. Again, having that open mindset of listen to others, what can be improved, what should be on top of mind, to go for the next step. And because I do see in the market a lot of people focusing on competition. What is competition doing? What are they doing? How can I, and they see, let's say, that they are so focused on what a competition doing, that they and as an organization, but also as an individual, yeah. And by doing so, they lose the attention for their customer.
Yeah.
And if you start with a mindset on how can I become myself and my organization a little bit bigger tomorrow than today, you spend your energy much more efficient than looking into what competition is doing, because sometimes competition will be better,
Yeah.
and that's a fact. But by having that mindset of continuous improvement, well, you have the chance to become better again tomorrow than them, but for your in the eyes of the customer and not in their eyes.
Yeah.
And that is my that's the way how I looked into it, and then start practicing for key account management. I had a track record as well as key account manager, and once I created that program, then there was an interest from our sales leader to say, hey, why what you did for key account, why don't you do that for the entire organization? And that's brought me into the function I'm performing today.
Great. And especially I think it's that always learning, curious mindset, and how to become better, but in the sense of efficiency. I really like it. I had a CEO once, and he said, we don't look at competition because it feels like looking at in the rain of a Formula One race. You're driving behind that car, and suddenly there's a turn, and by the time you realize there's a turn that the car is going to the left, you drive into the wall. So I
Mhm.
really like this, and it always stays with
Yeah.
me.
Mhm.
Um, and to finish off, and for the message to the audience, if you look at the strategic relevance in enablement and in excellence, how can you build up an organization that takes into account that strategic relevance to enablement?
Mhm. Well, I do believe in yeah, you need to be in an organization which embrace change, which embrace
Mhm.
innovation. I think that is one element. If you're in a very static market, and your entire organization is let's say doing the things as they have always been there, because it's very hard to then I would say probably you better look to another organization to do it. But hook what you do as sales excellence or sales enablement to some of the challenges the organization has. Again, uh, numbers which are not met, or a number of people who don't meet their targets, or a launch of a product which is difficult, and show that sales excellence or sales enablement can really make the difference. And I think that is the best way to start this. And very often I hear from other sales managers say, "Yeah, I'm expected to do this on top of my daily job," and but. Or they're Superman, man or woman, but combining the operational job of a sales leader and then also performing these continuous improvement, haven't seen too much of people who realize, who are capable of combining both.
Yeah, yeah, great messages, especially if you look at the intensity of a sales leader job. It's hard to expect them to do two or three jobs at the same time. Yeah. Yeah, I really loved our conversations. Look, I'm sure the audience learned a lot today and in the previous sessions as well. Um, so where can people reach out to you if they want to?
Well, I think the easiest way is reach out on LinkedIn. I'm active on social media, so I'm happy to connect with people and have interesting conversations on the challenges in sales and in all the commercial aspects. So reach out on LinkedIn. I'm happy to set up a conversation.
Okay. Thank you so much again. Look,